Hello, everyone. Welcome back to James Bond Bitcoin Live. And in this episode here, it's just me and Brian. And so today we're just going to just talk amongst each other, and we're just going to have a great time doing it. So, one, but first of all, let's introduce yourself, Brian. Say hello or whatever your opening line is.
Howdy, everybody.
Yes, that's it. And
James,
so
James, who is
today,
that on the screen
yes.
there?
This is Axl Rose, and if you haven't noticed, I've been going around chats in the live stream of other people's show, talking about November Rain and the hashtag Yes2X, and this is my meme and my propaganda that I'm putting out, and I'm trying to experiment a little bit to see how powerful memes are in the age of information. And I've been hearing a lot about mimetic warfare. Have you heard of mimetic warfare, Brian?
No, I haven't heard anyone use the term mimetic warfare, but it sounds quite intriguing. It sounds like the propagandists who used to put their posters over the top of their opponents' posters every night.
Yeah, it's something similar. And I've never heard of memes before. Matter of fact, I've mispronounced it. I called it memes, like Mimi, and
Yeah,
so that's how new I am.
you were given false information, though. You were set up for that one.
I might have, but I didn't realize that that's the thing nowadays in how you influence people over the internet and through social media with what I would call propaganda, in my eyes. And so I'm trying something out here where I got Axl Rose and his song in the notes section. You can, there's a link to this picture or this meme, and also there's a video of November Rain in which the song, if you've seen the song or the video, really old 80s song. But I got here in quotes from Axl Rose: November Rain is a song about not wanting to be in a state of having to deal with unrequited love. And that's my meme, that's my joke, and that's the hashtag Yes2X for Yes to segregated 2X hard fork. So if people are wondering, am I for SegWit 2X hard fork? The answer is no. And if you watch the video of Axl Rose or November Rain, you'll see how the ending goes. Basically, the woman dies, and she gets buried, and that's what I think 2X will be.
I like where you're heading, James, and I like that you're using memes and taking a foray into mimetic warfare. But I think one of the key things about a meme is it has to be understandable right there. It can't require too many extra steps. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess I'm still experimenting, but the point is, you go out there, and I've been putting little snips of it out there if that people have seen on my live stream. And then what's funny is I'm getting a lot of people saying hashtag yes to 2X. Now, I don't know if these are actual supporters of the hard fork, but if they really knew what I was trying to say, I think it's kind of a joke on them, because making a meme is, yes, very quick, very understandable. I've seen a lot of memes, and sometimes they make no sense to me. Like, a lot of ways, like maybe you can kind of chime in on the Doge meme. Have you had a chance to see the Doge meme?
What do you mean? The original Doge meme, or
Yeah,
just?
the original Doge meme.
I'm not for sure I actually have.
Okay, well, I've seen it, and it's basically the Shinu Ibu dog, and it looks like it's freaking out or and staring at you, and you see the owner trying to touch the dog, and it says something to the effect like, you know, don't touch me, I'm freaked out, and apparently that was the original meme, and when I look at that, I don't see how I think that's a joke meme. I think that's innocuous. It has no effect, but it was very popular. But I just don't see any strong message to it, and so mine's more message driven, ironic, and you know, I guess a little poking fun of. And so again, I'm experimenting with it. Will it be successful? Probably not. Am I having fun? I definitely am.
Do you worry that since you've made it hashtag yes to X, that you might sway people, accidentally sway people toward support of 2X?
That's part of the experiment. That is part of the experiment.
I see.
Now, I'm against
Interesting.
it. I'm against it, right?
Right,
I'm
right.
against it. I'm asking people to look at this and look deeper. But I wonder how many people really, you know, look into it, right? Or really ask, like, they look at memes and they go, I don't get it. What does it mean? And they want to know more about it. Or do they just accept hashtag yes2x and then just go along with it? Like, because you gotta, in my mind, people are so simple-minded. They're like, you flash something in front of their face and they'll fall for it, like a little cheeseburger, right? A McDonald's cheeseburger that tastes horrible, but you know what, you flash it enough in front of their face, they'll go and buy it and they'll eat it, even though it's not that great. They'll keep going back and eating it over and over. So this is part of the experiment. And my thing about SegWit 2x hard fork is that it's bad, and it will cause the market to crash because of the fact that there's no replay protection. And so if this meme is really truly powerful, as people say that it is, and we're in a mimetic warfare type of scenario, I'm wondering how can I use this to my advantage, because I think that there is a market crash coming. Now, is it because I made this meme and people are going to now support hashtag yes2x and want, you know, no replay protection hard fork? Or is there just a regular market coming that's going to crash and people are just going to blame this? So I'm wondering what's going to happen in the end result, or maybe nothing. Maybe nobody
If
sees
the
this and nothing happens.
the market crashes, I'm blaming you, James. I'm blaming your damn mimetic warfare, your psyop that went awry because you did prove the masses are asses. Damn you, damn you, damn you.
Well, yes, yes. And so this is just an experiment, and you know, I do have a little talent in I guess reading people. Also, I did self-study neuro-linguistic programming. I don't know if you know what that is, Brian. Do you?
I'm sorry, repeat that. I'm in the street and was interacting with someone here. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Neuro-linguistic programming.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Neuro linguistic programming.
Yeah, also known as NLP, invented in
Right.
Santa Cruz, California, University of Santa Cruz, by a programmer
Mhm.
and a psychiatrist, I guess, sort of. Richard Blandard, I believe, is his name. And there was another guy, I forgot his name, but he was the programmer. And so essentially, let me quick take a look and see if anyone was in the chat. Sorry if I'm not seeing anything. Oh, no one's in the chat. Okay, so anybody actually watching? Oh, there's 2 people watching. Okay, probably just you and me.
No, one of those are organic. I don't have it on.
Oh, okay. All right, great.
Yeah, right?
Yes. So there's no chat. People are just watching. Neuro-linguistic programming is the way people process information. in physical reality and processes it internally, and how they process it. Matter of fact, I would say about over 90, almost 99% is actually filtered. You're actually filtering out most of it and only receiving 10 to less than 10% of the information that is coming around you through your sight, touch, sound, smell, taste. And so you block out a lot of it, because if you were to process all that information at once, you would go insane. And so what does get processed is what sticks in the mind. And what sticks in the mind, it goes into your conscious and subconscious part of your minds. Sometimes I wonder if we have two brains in our heads, and in some ways we do, the left and the right, but conscious and subconscious. But that information stays in there and actually controls a lot of your decision making now and in the future. And so that's what I take away from neurolinguistic programming. And not only that, if you understand a little bit more about it, you can actually program. You could become a programmer. Like, how people are computer programmers, they write code. Well, if you know how to communicate with other people, you can actually program other people, and without them consciously knowing what they're doing or how they're doing it, subconsciously in some ways, you can get them to do what you want in general. Not completely 100%. You can't take over someone, but you can get people to do what you want them to do. It's very similar to social engineering, but not quite.
Yeah, I've heard of it. It is a reality. People say, "Oh, that's impossible. You couldn't do that." It's very possible, like you explained it. Not that I
Yes.
know how to do it practically, but people do.
Yeah. Well, I actually got into it because it didn't teach me how to program other people and control other people. What it did do is it taught me how I process information and how I can have a relationship or communication, a better communication with other people. More in particular with my children and my wife. An immediate family, like immediate results in that way. So and it does work. I was surprised. I did some test on my kids, and I was surprised to see how much of this neurolinguistic programming is actually very real. And on top of that, if you don't know about it, you're completely blind to it. You could easily succumb to someone else's will and not even know. They could actually embed a lot of phobias that you have, um, and it's not that hard. And a lot of people do it anyway naturally, but you can definitely, if you knew enough to be dangerous, you could essentially implant phobias in other people. And if these people don't realize it, they can actually live out their lives in fear of things without realizing why they're afraid to do things. And so it kind of opened my eyes out there that there's advertising, marketing, media, news. They all use some form of this, the visual effect, to control people and the masses. And so I started to realize it more and more, and I'm beginning to understand like how often it is being used. And so mimetic warfare, I think there really is a mimetic warfare. I mean, propaganda was used during the war to, sway your, I guess, your enemy, and then also the people who are, the people who are waging the war as well, to make it more palatable.
It just occurred to me, James. I fought a mimetic war in the mid '90s.
Oh, tell us about it.
Well, I was going to college, and I was running for student senate president. And I had some pretty heavy competition. So I figured I needed to, have some propaganda. So I took clip art. I forget which program it was. It was like Lotus Notes or something from back then. I took every piece of clip art they had and put some words on it. Like there was a clip art of this guy smacking his forehead. So I said, "Why didn't I vote McLaughlin, student senate president?" And so on and so forth. And I posted them up all around the school. I won. Not for sure if it was because of my mimetic warfare, but I think it had something to do with it.
Interesting. What was it? What was some of your campaigns that you had?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Like what was the slogan that you used? What was it that you what kind of propaganda?
Well, this is 20 years ago, and I just tailored something for each picture, something that suited each picture and somehow supported me. So, like the guy smacking his forehead was, "Why didn't I vote McLaughlin for student senate president?" Or there's a happy face. It's like, you know, I just voted for McLaughlin. It's things like that. They weren't very deep, but I think they were effective nonetheless. And they were a forerunner of today's memes.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how effective are memes, because on the internet things can spread like really fast, right? I mean, you see it on every forum post. You'll see it in um, where else you see it spread through email, social media, definitely on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter
So,
and Facebook right now is where things spread like wildfire.
and I don't tweet, I don't do Facebook, and I don't do those for very particular reasons. I try to get out of those as much as I can. I think you could definitely be brainwashed in a lot of ways, and also you kind of reveal your hand as well, and then you get kind of pigeonholed into, you know, like you're this or you're that, and then that's how you are forever. So, um, but I don't know how. Tell me, Brian, because maybe I'm old and I don't go on the internet as much, but do you think like memes really affected the elections? Brian, are you there?
No, I don't. I was there. I was muted again. I do not believe they had that much of an impact. This particular election was very polarized, and most people were in their corners for quite a while. There weren't like a lot of undecided people. You were either for Hillary or for Trump, or you were an independent voter, for Stein or Johnson. So I don't think there was a lot of things to be swayed. Every time news came out, like the news stories that came out had more weight and power than the memes that came out about them. Those memes tried to carry those news stories further, but this comment where they got him with Billy Bush, um, that didn't sink him. And then they tried to use memes to continue that story, and it didn't work. So I don't think that detracts from the power of the meme. I think that just says this election was just very polarized, and there wasn't going to be much changing or swaying of a very, very big chunk of the populace at all. In fact, a very, very, very few undecided as we got closer and closer to the election.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, like the effects of memes, and if there really is mimetic warfare. When I first heard this term, believe it or not, I was watching. I forgot his name. I stopped watching him because he tried to be, in my opinion, deceptive on Steemit. But that's where I first heard of it, and he was showing clips of people in Congress actually talking about memes, how terrorists use memes to recruit or to betray or frame a message or a situation about the world using the internet. And this was like a serious thing. Like I saw the clips where they actually talked about memes being used by terrorists for recruiting, planning out terrorist activities. You know, they would do a meme of a target, and then the target would be attacked. You know, I don't know if that's just you're sending a message in plain sight as a, you know, worldwide message, so your cell groups can read the message and they would understand, they would decipher that message. But to the general public, this thing makes no fucking sense, right? So, you know, when I started looking at memes, is memes more of a way to send a coded message to your group or to your cells? You know, is that what mimetic warfare is? Or is it to push an agenda or push a movement in a way that you want the movement to be done without any leadership involved? It's just a natural progress. No leaders involved. You're just moving and creating a movement with individuals, but collectively, they have the same mindset and they're acting on their own. But to collectively, they're a
So,
force.
all right, given between those two choices, I would say memes are not used to um, plan attack strategies because you can use steganographic means for implanting the data for the attack. I think the meme speaks more um, philosophically, if you will. It tries to speak to the people. It empowers and emboldens those who already have the belief, and it makes those who are wavering think about it more and maybe go ahead and switch sides, or not switch sides, but join them, if you will.
Okay, but we're living in a concept of a decentralized system where you're looking at how can I say this, a robust system. In other words, if you take out one portion of a group, the other group will fill in that void and continue on. You know, like a hydra, you cut off one head, it grows 3 heads, 4 heads, and stuff like that. And
Sure.
a movement without a leader, that might be the perfect opportunity. And we see this a lot in Bitcoin when I first started out. And you see it kind of, I think, a lot with maybe the whole movement of, you know, I don't know too much because I got in after, of cypherpunks, and even just early internet users. This whole concept that you could be a part of a collective, or maybe even anonymous, something like that, where there is no leader. You know, anyone can propose anything, and if it just takes on this role, or if it takes off, it's a collective making the decision of doing things, and it just goes that way. It's natural. It's a natural, no leader movement, and it just has a life of its own as a crowd or as a collective. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. I don't know if this experiment will work. Each video, I'll probably do something similar. I mean, I got Photoshop. Something, I think I got a pirated Photoshop. That's one of the reasons why I use Windows XP, because if I upgrade to a better software or newer Windows, all my pirated software won't work anymore. So, Brian, are you on mute? Did I lose Brian? No, Brian, you're still there. You're on mute. Okay. Well, I guess Brian might be having technical difficulties.
Sorry
So,
about that.
oh, no problem.
I was. So I'm back, but I didn't hear what you last said.
Okay. No problem. Anyways, this whole idea of mimetic warfare, I have to say it's a little bullshit. But I'm willing to experiment like I do with all my experiments and give it a try to see where it goes. Because you won't know until you actually do it. So my theory is that really this won't do anything. It may actually maybe piss off a few people who look at it and all they see is yes 2x, and maybe it'll piss off people. But I think for some people who see this and they already know a little bit about me, they may actually laugh at this a little bit and maybe actually even enjoy the consumption of the meme. And we'll see where it goes. But I might do something like this every time because I'll play around with this whole idea and maybe even see what happens in the end. Will SegWit 2x happen? Will the market crash? It'll be interesting to see.
Now, how are you going to measure the effect that your meme is having?
Well, again, this is not really scientific. This is purely fun
Okay.
and enjoyment. I do a show. I make a meme. I talk about the things around the meme, the whole idea, the concept about the meme, and then if people watch it, and I guess it's a measure of time. Now, whether this meme was effective or not effective, I guess it really doesn't matter. It's just the point that I'm sending out a message. Does the message really get received? Now, remember, I'm using a little bit of neurolinguistic programming, from what I understand it, to see if people overtly or covertly act upon this, right? Because there's no real way to measure it other than the fact to give it time and to see if two things happen, which that's what I'm measuring at a very particular event. SegWit 2x hard forks and the market crashes, or and see what happens. And if they do or they don't, it'll be interesting to see, because I don't know if, Brian, you've been watching some of my past videos, but I've done prediction videos. Have you seen those yet? I did them
Yes, I
earlier in
have.
the year. And I made some crazy predictions, right?
You have.
Some I would say come very close. Not quite. I'm very particular about some, and not particular about others. And so, I stopped kind of doing it because I kind of ran out of predictions to make for the rest of the year. But I'm still waiting for the ETF. I read some news that the ETF might actually we'll have a Bitcoin ETF maybe around the end of the year. And so that's something I'm waiting to hear about. I made a prediction about being Mount Goxed again, and in some ways that kind of did happen with BitC. I also talked about Poloniex collapsing, but it may not be Poloniex. It may be Bitphoenix. But we'll see. I got the rest of the year because my predictions were for this year, so I still have 4 months to see if any of those predictions happen. And so this is probably another way of predicting.
All right. All right. So what we'll need to do is you need to add hashtag yes2x into the description of the video.
Okay,
Right?
I guess I should do that. Yes.
If people look for yes2x, you'd want them to eventually find this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the ways we can measure it is if we get a higher view count than your normal live show view count.
Maybe. I mean, that's a way to measure views, but I'm trying to get one person who is a big influence or can become an influence or have influence in the message. So I may not be able to get one hit, two hits, or a million hits. It's not how much hits I get. It's actually how many people that actually watch it, receive the message, and then they follow the program. And they may get a million hits on what they do, or they may get a huge response on what they do.
What
So it's really hard to measure because
what
I'm not tracking people. I'm not tracking what
mhm.
other people do. I can't. The only thing I could do is make this, have some people watch it, one person watch it, or no people watch it. Maybe I'm just predicting and see if it has an effect on my two predictions or what I think will happen, which is 2x will hard fork and a market crash. So the only thing I'm going to measure is just see what happens. Now, it may have nothing to do with it. It may, you know, and the other thing about it is if I look at this and I know what it's about, does that somehow do I inadvertently alter my reality to fit my world? And somehow I actually do all the work subliminally, internally, and somehow that pushes a movement that I have no idea that I'm doing.
Quite possibly. What do you expect this one person to do
Well,
if they are programmed?
well they will um, push in their own way, and it could be anything really. Um, Promote or not even promote, just talk about the hard fork, which is kind of easy to say now because people are already talking about it. But maybe
Mhm.
push it or talk about it in a narrative that will say, well, if we have this hard fork with no replay, that's dangerous because investors will not like it. That could be one way. Uh, the other way could be promoting or being okay with the hard fork and willing to take that chance. And that chance is so risky that it causes a market crash. So it's one or the other two effects, and or even both. So it'll be interesting to see what really happens. I'll just throw it out there, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then it won't, or it may have no effect whatsoever, and I'm just a very good predictor, or a horrible predictor.
Well, if SegWit X, if 2x is activated, I hope you're a horrible predictor.
A horrible predictor. You don't want to see that, and you also don't want to see a market crash.
Who wants to see a market crash? But why do you
Right.
think the market's going to crash?
Well, several things. The price has gone up a tremendous amount,
Hmm.
more than what I think is sustainable, even for Bitcoin, even for these emerging, what people would consider emerging markets. The other thing is because of this particular hard fork of SegWit 2x, and a lot of altcoins, even Ethereum and even Litecoin, depend on Bitcoin's stability or its liquidity, I should say, in their measure in their value in the marketplace, and especially all the smaller altcoins, all the altcoins that don't have a US dollar pairing, they're highly susceptible to Bitcoin price fluctuations because their value is based on Bitcoin. And so if Bitcoin has a loss of confidence, all those altcoins will. And to some degree that happened, I think, yesterday or over the weekend, where we saw the market crashing just a little bit. That's not even crashing. I would say that's a slight correction. And you saw all the coins just take a huge uh, depreciation in value. As a matter of fact, we went to like over 180. I think it was over 180 billion in market cap for the whole cryptocurrency. Now we're back down below that.
Yeah.
And so if Bitcoin has that price effect, and that's just Bitcoin, imagine the rest of the coins, how much price effect they have. And then again, this is psychological. This has nothing to do with technology, with Bitcoin or the blockchain or software. It has nothing, or mining. It has nothing to do with that. At this point, it's all psychological with the investors or the people who have put money into it, whether Bitcoin, Ethereum, or cash they put into it. And once they see prices fall, they get scared and they start getting a herd mentality. Just as people got excited about the price going up, the inverse effect will happen, and they don't want to be losers, and they'll fall into that, I guess, trap of trying to preserve their gains, but only end up, you know, re- depreciating the price.
Well, we know that a lot of people sold their Bitcoin when they got up to 5,000, 4,900, and they're going to be buying that back soon. So we'll see another rise in Bitcoin price this week easily. We'll go at 5%. Not that I'm
Yeah,
a prognosticator, but it just makes sense.
yeah. I think it's this market still has legs, has a lot of legs. Matter of fact, I did a chart analysis, and it looks like we're about two thirds of the way to reaching, I think, the final topping price, in my opinion, which would be about, I think it's 7,500. I'm waiting to hit 5,000. That's the current target price. And once it hits 5,000, uh, my next target price after that is 7,500. And but once it reaches 7,500, I think it's by then it's overbought, and then it's the question of, is there going to be a bear market after this? Because the price just can't keep going up like this. It's unsustainable.
Well, the only thing that could surely keep the price afloat is if more and more people want to obtain Bitcoin. You said there will come a time when that'll stop, though, and the buying won't be there in enough volume for the price to keep going up. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it could last a while. It could last a while, but there has to be a trigger. And then, what I'm trying to say, the trigger is the 2x hard fork. That's the trigger. Now, if
Hmm.
I'm wrong, and if that trigger means the price is going to go even higher, then you really have what I would call a true runaway bull market, where you could probably see the price go up to 10,000, which would be awesome. I know you'd be happy, I'd be happy. If SegWit 2x has the opposite effect, but I don't see how that can be with no replay protection, because if people are going to transact their Bitcoin, either SegWit 2x coins or your regular, you know, Bitcoins, if you send it to someone, they're going to receive both coins. That's why if there's no replay protection, you're going to send your fork coins and the main chain coin, and the person on the receiving side is going to get double. Whether they know it or not, they got one. They have the same address. They may not even realize it, and once you send it, they may not even know how to give it back to you. So that's the issue, and the fight is, okay, who's gonna, who? I guess the battle is, what coin or what chain is going to be Bitcoin. And I think that's what's going to scare a lot of people because they don't know what to do. And I think they're going to play it safe, and they're going to start cashing out. They're going to start dumping. And there's no point in dumping into an altcoin because an altcoin is based on Bitcoin. And so if you just go into an altcoin, you're going to be susceptible to even greater losses because the altcoins will have an amplified effect um, compared to Bitcoin or even Ethereum or even Litecoin to some degree.
Now, see, I'm worried that not enough people recognize that fact, and they will run to an altcoin, even possibly one that does not have a USD pairing.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe some people will go to these like Steam backed dollars or bit shares, something that they think is paired to a dollar or even tethers, which I
Hmm.
think is a huge mistake because um, they may not be able to redeem those for per dollar, and they're left holding nothing.
You know what?
So
It's funny about
go ahead.
Tether. When everything was going down this weekend, Tether was the only thing that was going up, aside from some random coins that just came out and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess people were dumping into it or or something. I'm seeing a lot of reports that Tether is being generated, 20, $30 million being generated, and Tether is just a token. It's supposed to be originally supposed to be one for $1, but as you see in the coin market cap, it fluctuates. When the price falls, Tether tends to go up in price, and then when the price goes up, Tether seems to go down in price. So it's not truly a one-to-one dollar. So the safest thing to do would be to simply cash out into a currency or to an exchange that has a US dollar pairing, and they're just going to sit on it, and that's I think that's going to be the start of a bear market. That's just my opinion. Now, people can heed the warning or not heed the warning. It's up to them, you know.
Something that I don't hear anyone talk about, and I thought about this before, but it's the first time I've thought about it to speak to you. The the US dollar has been going down in value pretty steadily for the past like 9, 10 months. So increases paired with the dollar, the values of things paired with dollars should increase. And so it makes sense. As the dollar goes down, the Bitcoin's going to be worth more, and so would everything else attached to it.
Yeah, yeah. The dollar has been going down, and I'm wondering because the pairing for Bitcoin is US dollar to Bitcoin. I'm not sure how that moves the price, but if the US dollar goes down, that would essentially drive the price of Bitcoin to go up. And so maybe there really is no buying going on. That could be just bots reacting to the price of the US dollar, and the bots are trading to the pair of the US dollar and the Bitcoin. And so there's no real people trading. It's just bots trading against the two pairing, the US dollar and the Bitcoin. Since US dollar is going down, theoretically Bitcoin's price would go up.
So it sounds like what we need to do so that we can buy more Bitcoin for our dollar is to get the U.S. economy in better shape and get the value of the dollar back up, so I can get some affordable Bitcoin into my wallet.
Yeah, that's another factor. I mean, if the price of Bitcoin or the price of the dollar, if the dollar goes up, it could be just bots trading, right? They're looking at the value of the dollar, and they're looking at the Bitcoin, and they're just trading those pairs. What could happen is, if the dollar goes up, they're trading on that, and it's driving Bitcoin down as the, and so people may not even be selling. It could just be the way the pairs are set up. And so, yeah, if the dollar is higher in value, Bitcoin's value has to go down. So you're taking your dollar and you're buying more Bitcoin if you're a real person buying. But I think a lot of these exchanges are nothing more than bots reacting to the different commodities or the
Yeah.
different currencies.
So when the activation was getting ready to happen on August 1st, right? And you were monitoring the mempool and the transactions, and you saw that there was just kind of a flat line, and everybody had kind of stopped doing things, it seemed. But we still saw fluctuations in the price during that time. That would explain that.
Well, that time I was looking at trade block, and that might have been a glitch, but it just seemed kind of weird, the timing of the glitch. It happened the day before August 1st. And I looked at a different source, blockchain info, and it seemed slower. The blocks were being generated, less than or more than 10 minutes. It's supposed to be an average of 10 minutes, but it seemed to take a longer. It seemed to take half an hour. I didn't check a third source. I had Rocky Palmetto um, email me and tell me he saw the same thing, and he checked a third source and it was coming just fine. But I can't verify that or deny that because I didn't see the third source. I just saw two sources. They seem to represent the same thing. And so I took it, and in the timing of it before August 1st, the block seemed really slow being generated. So, yeah. Did you also want to talk about something else? I know you wanted to talk about Russia.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of stories lately about Russia and them getting into mining, and that the energy companies in Russia are actually offering a 50% discount in electricity rates to Bitcoin miners there in Russia. It seems as though they're trying to compete for global hash power on the Bitcoin network. It's kind of exciting, actually.
Yeah, I've been seeing some of that, and I noticed Mycelium had an ad for Russian miner coin. I don't know if they're mining for Bitcoin or if they're mining for their own coin.
No, I'm uncertain about that myself.
But it's interesting because Russia has the largest peer-to-peer trade according to local Bitcoin. They used to be like fourth, or they used to be non-existent. The ruble against Bitcoin pairing. Now they've the the order is ruble Bitcoin. It has the largest volume. Second is US dollar Bitcoin. And third is the British pound against Bitcoin. And then fourth is euro against Bitcoin. They've kind of actually even dropped off a little bit. Euro has really dropped off. So Russia has really taken over the peer-to-peer market scene. It would make sense that they should start mining.
Yeah, it'll I mean, it's not us getting more hash power, but it's hash power or percentage of global hash power being removed from the hands of the Chinese, which is good.
Possibly, possibly. I guess it's more distributed in a way, and hopefully they'll. I don't know if they're hashing Bitcoin again. They could be hashing Ethereum. They could be hashing Litecoin. Hopefully, the money's there for them to be incentivized to, offer hash power for whatever, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. It's good to have more hash power overall. So that's good.
Yeah, from what I read, I really it sounded like they were getting into Bitcoin mining specifically.
Okay, that's good. If they're willing to offer cheap power, that's a good start.
Well, yeah, that's how the Chinese have gained their dominance. They have state-sponsored electricity.
Do you think they're also going to start making miners? Do they mention that?
There was an allusion to that, yes. And if they're actually going to compete, then they're going to have to start making their own, and they'll have to try to come up with something better than what the Chinese are making, which would be very interesting if we had an arms race between Russia and China for miners. Uh, that'd just be some spectacle to watch, right?
Yeah, I think it would. Russians. I think they're not dummies. There's a lot of hackers over there, and they sure know how to hack. So having some competition over there, I think it could be good. It could also be dangerous because this may give them control, or they may try to take control of the network, just like the Chinese are trying to take control of the network. Maybe they're looking to have more influence in the space because they see an opportunity of resource and power, and so it's a double-edged sword. But at the same time, um, Bitcoin doesn't have a side. It's neutral. It's whoever wants it more than anybody else will get Bitcoin. Uh,
Well,
so
it's neutral until someone has 50.1% of the hash power.
that is true. That is true. That hasn't. How long has that been? It's actually been, I think, 2013, 2014. That actually happened. But the idea is that if someone does, they wouldn't do anything malicious to themselves because that would destroy the price. And so ideally, you want them to, um, how can I say, de-hash themselves, so to
Well,
speak.
even if they kept the hashing power, you're right. All of the money they would have had to have invested into that equipment and electricity to gain that dominance, they need Bitcoin to succeed.
Yeah, and that's why they're mining it. They're not mining it to destroy per se. And it makes sense, Russia, because they got sanctions against from the US. And so what better way than to use Bitcoin to work around those sanctions? And so I think we could be seeing the beginning of state sponsored Bitcoin mining and trading, where nation states are going to use it as a way of valuing transfer, or I'm sorry, transferring value, working around the banks.
Well, regardless of whatever's happened, we both know that's what Ozzy has always maintained was that once governments start using it to settle debts and to do things and sponsor it, that's when we know it's really going to take off to the moon.
Yeah, I guess he has been saying it, but he's and I guess I can agree with that. But I think Russia is using it not because they want to, and because they don't have much of a choice. And that's kind of always been the use case for Bitcoin, is that people aren't volunteering to do this. This is like the last resort. If they could use a wire transfer, or Swift, or Intertrack, that's what they use in Canada, or SEPA payments, or any of these other alternative payments through the banking system, they would. It's just that they can't. And because they can't, they're going to cryptocurrencies. I mean, cryptocurrencies aren't that great in reality. They're actually very hard sometimes as far as liquidity, but considering the alternatives, cryptocurrency is the best thing out there so far.
Well, as a store of value thus far, absolutely. But you're right, liquidity can be difficult. And if you're technically challenged, Bitcoin is not for you yet.
Yes, I agree. You have to have some computer technical skills. Um, this whole idea of giving money to your grandma so grandma can use it. Um, I just don't buy that. I think that's nice. I think that's a nice sales pitch to people who aren't in the space, who don't know anything about it. It makes you feel good that grandma can use it. But I think in reality, grandma will never use cryptocurrency. And by the time, if she ever does, she'll probably most likely pass away. And so you're trying to educate a segment of the population that has a short lifespan to teach and to adopt. Really is for the future generations and the young of the population, the young groups of the population. They'll pick it up much faster, and they'll probably utilize it um, into their adult years, maybe, perhaps, and utilize it in ways that I don't think we can ever imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely meant for a world that has your kids and my new nephew as adults.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, apparently I'm getting a lot of dislikes on this. I don't know if you've been watching the chat.
No, actually, I was just enjoying conversation. Let me check. A lot
Well,
of
I
dislikes on what part?
I just noticed guest near, and that's part of the experiment. Is to expose you to this and get a reaction. It's not really to get a like. I'm not going for that. Um, I'm doing a lot of experimenting with my channel, and it's if you haven't noticed already, it's not to get viewers. It's not to get more subscribers. It's really to use it as I think it. I would like to intend to use it as a social media medium to reach out to the audience and to see this as an experiment. Because in some ways, when it comes to social media, the product is not my content. The product is you, the viewers. You're the product. And just how Genesis Mining used you guys, or just how BitConnect uses you, or even other content creators aren't the product in social media structure, in my opinion. You guys are the viewers. You're the product. We're trying to get you to do something. And so, I think we've. I'm going a little bit beyond here, but I'm seeing a shift in consumption. Like people have been considered consumers. I think now people are are starting to become the product itself to be used. They're being branded, right? What social media do you use? What kind of phones do you have? You're being branded in a way, and then you become the product, and that's the other thing about it. So, excuse me if you don't like it, if you dislike it. Thanks for letting me know. But this is first of all, this is an experiment, and thank you for participating.
Moohoo ha 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 ha.
Yeah, you're doing my evil bidding here. So Brian, did you have anything else?
No, I had to mute myself because I was laughing and coughing.
Okay.
No, nothing in particular. I just wanted to throw out that Russia thing, see what you thought, and interesting that there's already been a reaction as such to your meme here.
Yeah, right away I got two thumbs down. They came here and they saw this, and they obviously dislike it. So which
Well,
is good information for me. You know, you can't waste an opportunity to receive a reaction, whether it's positive or negative, because it tells you about something. Um, so it tells me right off the bat, people don't like SegWit 2x, which is I think very popular. Um, so that tells me right off the bat they may not like this format. But if they saw the message, I wonder what they're going to do now. Are they going to start hating on SegWit 2x to the point where they're going to actively participate to make sure that it doesn't happen? Like, how are they going to do this? Are they going to go out there and make their own memes? Are they going to go out there and talk to uh, other people about this and create a movement of their own? So, you know, I'm not specifically doing this because I'm saying I support it. I actually don't support it, but it's to get you, the audience, to participate in some way or shape or form, to go out there and do your thing in your movement, and creating uh, an end result, whether you want SegWit 2x or you don't want SegWit 2x. Because you know, I think we're still in a fight, and although we have SegWit, it's not over yet. In November, it's only 2 months, so it's not a lot of time.
so what I'm hearing from you, James, is this is an opening salvo in a reverse psychological operation with
Yeah.
mimetic warfare.
Yes. Yes. It is. It is very complicated, isn't it? It's
Yes,
convoluted.
yes.
It's convoluted a little bit, but it tells me a lot. It's going to give me a lot of information, because if I made it simple, it might be too obvious. So I need to reverse it. I do a lot of things that way. I reverse a lot of stuff, because one of the things that I try to do is, if it can go one way and then it goes the other way in the opposite direction, then it might be true. Just whatever I'm trying to do, there might be something real here. But if it goes one way and then can't go the other, I'm wondering, well, it doesn't work the other way. There must, why? Is it just a one way thing? Is it not real? Is this something wrong with it? So I'm trying to do it backwards, and I do a lot of stuff that way, ironically. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was my final uh, experience with Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah, yeah. The levees held?
The levees held. I was only one of the three villages that they lifted the evacuation notice. I was already here, so I was like, all right. My wife, I told, well, my wife was getting tired, and it stopped raining enough to the point where she could drive on the roads without flooding. What she ended up
Hmm.
doing was, I'm a little upset at her, but I guess it's already done. She ended up trying to really get to Dallas, and she kind of risked her life and the life of the kids to drive through flooded waters, to the point where, I mean, flooded to the hood of the car, to the point that it got water into the air filter, into the air intake, and that's why it stalled. So I was
Mm.
a little upset I was a little upset because I looked at the air intake, and it was literally at the hood of the car, and I was kind of upset. Like I said, you know, because she called me right before and said, "Well, the police have blocked me off, and I can't get out." And I told her, "Just come back. Just come back. You know, you got there safely. Just come back safely. We'll write it out." And next thing I know, she's stuck. So I'm a little upset. But what I did notice when I was watching the news was the reporting going on was very different than what I experienced and what I've been able to see. Some of it was very accurate, but some of the other reporting was just, it was kind of off. It was really off. And I was there was another, I think it was CNBC, no, not no, CBS. It was CBS. They had people in front of a green screen talking about, you know, the hurricane like they were there live. And the reason why I can tell they were in a green screen is because the footage of their background was repeating. You know, like this one lady was
Mm-hmm.
in front of a shelter or food collection center, and I could see the wind blowing, and the same I think there was some kind of paper. The same paper was blowing the same way repeatedly. You know, it wasn't random.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially, these people and the way the lighting as well, they're well lit up front. And you see this with a lot of YouTubers who have their green screens and they have a lighting in front of them. They're well lit, and then the background is whatever. I saw this on mainstream news, and they were like pretending to be live on scene when they weren't. That kind of blew me away. So these are the kind of things that you kind of pick up when you realize you can be manipulated through your visual senses, through your hearing, like people tell you the wrong information, visual effects, and when if you look for them, you know, you kind of realize, wow, you're in some ways kind of being framed, like you as the audience are being framed into a narrative. And so that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing I noticed after the hurricane, the worst time was probably Monday, but the days after that, you know, the news media started showing repeatedly the flooded streets. Yes, there are some streets that are still flooded, but a lot of them have receded. A lot of them have receded. The worst has been over, but they kept showing the worst parts of it. And I guess they're trying to stress out that Houston's like underwater or flooded. By then, most of my neighbors have returned. The stores are open that I'm around in. They're open. The gas stations are open. Very few looting. Not There's not as much looting going on. So that was good. There, I think there was at the time. I think this was about 2 days ago. Only 8 arrests for looting. So I think people who, I think people were out there with their own guns, you know, protecting the public and protecting themselves and protecting the community. And I think that says a lot about the Second Amendment. You know, if you have a right to bear arms, and in some cases the police were not there to respond to your 911 calls. My wife called 911. Nobody picked her up. Nobody, no tow car, nothing came by. It was overwhelming. And so in that sense, you know, we're essentially, you know, for a moment in time, the state evaporates. It disappears. You're literally in a state of anarchy. You know, it's good to realize that in a time of emergency, you have to take care of yourself. You know, you cannot rely on others. I was fortunate there was a good Samaritan that did help my wife, and she was safe. But in a time of emergency, the law, the state can evaporate in a moment's notice. It's, you know, it can evaporate. So people who always talk about the state, well, sometimes the state will not be there, you know, and that's a reality. Now, I'm hoping that they'll come back and some law and order. I think it's already somewhat restored. It's just a matter of recovery. So I hope for the best for everybody in Houston.
Well, it's interesting that they would go through that trouble to make it look like they were still in a storm, and why they would want the rest of the world to think that storm was happening there at that time. That's crazy.
Well, at the
But
time, the storm was real,
mhm.
but I just find it kind of weird. They showed clips of when they were live in the shelter, right? At the shelters, they were live as people were coming in, they were interviewing. But you know, when they braked and they did talk to the reporter, you know, it looked like they were in some. It did look like they were in a studio, and it was very obvious. It was like they were well lit, and they had a background of a continuous background filmed, already pre-done. And
Mhm.
the reason why I know they're in a studio is because they were not sweating. Okay, for the amount of clothes they had and for the weather that was out there and the rain, they didn't look wet, and they were not sweating. And then when I watch other channels, like local channels, I could tell because they're walking around in the water, right? They're actually walking around, and they don't look so hot. They're wearing hats, and, and they're wet. And then I go to CBS, and they're well dressed. They're not even breaking a sweat. It's humid and it's wet out here, and they got a bright light shined on front of them. So it was. I'm starting to understand that, what we see in the media today may not be accurate. I'm really starting to believe that because I experienced it, and what I saw on TV or well, it's YouTube, and what I saw in real life from what I went through were different, and it started making me think about a lot of stuff that you see on, again, YouTube and on your mainstream media.
Right on. Thanks for sharing the observation.
You're welcome, Brian. Well, I think this ends it up. We just usually do an hour show. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share, or even say, or any comments?
No, I was thinking about Gone Till November by Wyclef and how we could use that for the next Yes to X meme.
Okay, gone. Who's it by?
Wyclef,
Wycliffe. How's the song go?
you don't want me to even hum a bar nor try to fake it.
All right, I'll look it up and I'll try to make a meme out of it for our next video so we can talk about that. We'll continue with this and we'll see what kind of reaction. If anything, if people don't like this, that's a good thing. Okay, it's a good thing. They could hate on me, but unless they're actually watching this video and listening, I don't think they're really getting it. But it tells me right off the bat that they're reacting to the yes to X part of the meme. And you're right. You may be right. People just want to be fed what to do. People are really that simple. They just want to look, see, receive, and then accept.
Actually, I wish I could play that Wyclef Jean song right now. It's just, copyright and all that.
I'll listen to it. I'll listen to it, and the next video for the audience, if you see it, in this video, I have a link to November Rain, to the video, so you can go and watch it. I also have the picture, a link to this picture. The next one will have a video to your song that you you want to put up, and I don't know if you have time to make a meme yourself. I'll share that, or I'll go ahead and make a meme or something, and we'll put a link on that, and we'll have fun with it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So, anyways, you have any closing statements?
The prosecution rests, Your Honor.
Excellent. All right, everyone, this concludes this episode of James Bond Bitcoin Live. It'll be a different format.
I do.
Okay.
Howdy, Catriona. Thank you for commenting throughout the show and staying on with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Catriona. We'll have something special for you. If you want, contact me or Brian. Leave a note, comment in the section, and we'll try to send you. I'll try to send you some Bitcoin. I really appreciate you coming by, and then you can have a Canadian beer. I know you're up in Canada, and so thanks. Well, anyways, this concludes this episode. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, dislike, leave a comment, or even do a video response. Until next time, everyone, stay tuned. Bye-bye. It'll be a different format. I do.